Kota's haunted Brij Raj Bhawan Palace, a place in India whose name perhaps no Indian has not heard. Kota is a major hub for IIT education, but along with that, many secrets are hidden in Kota. There is such a palace in Kota that people consider haunted. Kota's Brij Raj Bhawan Palace is about 200 years old, which is now used as a hotel. But it is said that as beautiful and grand as this palace looks, its story is equally terrifying. But Mohan, who was studying in a college in Kota, had no idea about it. Mohan was a history student, and for his project, he had to research 3 heritage buildings. And among them, Mohan chose Brij Raj Bhawan Palace as one of the heritage buildings. And perhaps this very mistake of his was going to cost him dearly. After taking special permission for research, one evening he reached Brij Raj Bhawan Palace with his friend and project partner Shikha. Although one of Mohan's friends who lived in Kota had already told him that Brij Raj Bhawan Palace is considered haunted and they should leave before nightfall. But Mohan didn't believe in all these things. When Mohan and Shikha reached there, the palace looked completely normal like other palaces. Stone-built walls, large gardens, and beautiful carvings. Mohan and Shikha got so busy in their research that they didn't even realize when it became night. They were just about to leave the palace when Mohan felt a very cold gust of wind while passing in front of a room. He stopped right there and started looking at the closed door of that room. Suddenly, Mohan felt like someone was sitting inside the room and crying. He turned toward Shikha, but Shikha was not there. While walking with him, Shikha had suddenly disappeared. Meanwhile, the crying sound coming from inside started getting louder. Mohan now started feeling a little anxious. He started calling out for Shikha. His voice was echoing throughout the palace. But there was no trace of Shikha. Now the crying sound from that room had become even louder. It felt to Mohan as if some man was groaning in pain and crying loudly. Trembling, Mohan went near the door and placed his ear against it. But suddenly, that crying sound stopped. There was a lock on the door of that room. So Mohan started peeking inside through the window attached to the door. But he couldn't see any human inside. He was just about to leave from there when suddenly the locked door opened on its own. Mohan couldn't understand how the locked door suddenly opened by itself. Mohan gathered courage and went inside the room. He saw that in the corner of the room, a well-built man was sitting on a rotating chair. His back was towards Mohan. That man was wearing a uniform, a British Indian Army uniform. Mohan saw that the same man was sitting there and crying. Mohan called out to him, asked him what had happened. But he didn't reply. Mohan slowly moved towards him, and as he placed his hand on the man's shoulder, Mohan's hand passed right through his body. Suddenly, that man's neck twisted completely backward. One of his eyes was burst, and the other one was completely white. It looked like his entire face was rotten. He suddenly stopped crying and started giving strange commands in English. And then he immediately started laughing in a weird way. Seeing all this, Mohan got extremely scared. He ran straight toward the door. But the door had shut closed. Mohan tried hard to open it, but it just wouldn't open. Suddenly, Mohan saw that the horrific man was standing right in front of him. And in his hand was a rifle, which he had pointed at Mohan. All the lights in the room began to flicker. Mohan was now completely stunned. He felt as if it was the last day of his life. That man shouted loudly and fired his rifle. There was a loud gunshot sound, and Mohan screamed. Then suddenly, Mohan felt like someone grabbed his shoulder and was calling his name. He opened his eyes and saw that Shikha was sitting in front of him. She was trying to bring Mohan back to consciousness. Seeing this, Mohan was completely shocked. He looked around, everything was just the same as before. The room was still locked, and no one was inside. Shikha told Mohan that for the last 15 minutes, he had been standing silently staring at the door of that room, and then suddenly screamed and fell down. Mohan at first couldn't understand what had just happened to him, or what Shikha was telling him. For a moment, he felt that maybe he was hallucinating. But then, after what Shikha told him next, the ground slipped from under Mohan's feet. Shikha said that in the room outside which Mohan had frozen, there was a British man standing inside, wearing an old-time British Indian Army uniform. That man stared at Mohan through the small window above the door for a while. And then when he went back inside, Mohan suddenly screamed. After hearing this, Mohan realized that what happened to him was not a hallucination, but a terrifying truth that could scare anyone to death. When Mohan asked more about the palace, he found out that a top officer of the British Army used to live in this palace, and he loved this palace very much. But during the freedom struggle, Indian soldiers broke into the palace and killed that British general. It is said that the soul of that British officer still haunts Brij Raj Bhawan palace and is still waiting to take revenge. It is believed that this ghost doesn't harm anyone, but many people have seen that British officer doing different things. Many watchmen have also said that while on duty, some invisible force slaps them and even gives them commands in English. After that night, Mohan never went near that palace again. Whatever happened with him that night, perhaps Mohan will never be able to forget.